Thank you, Chair, and welcome to all our contributors this morning. Isn't it wonderful? I know we're here today to talk about, as you've mentioned here, a return to campus, and it's so true. So many of our colleges and universities kept going all through this pandemic, and I suppose we know that the reopening here is about, the returning is about, I suppose, putting students' best interests at heart. It is about having the most wonderful student experience for students that have been, I suppose, extremely disheartened over the last year or 2 years. We know that our students are resilient, and I hope that this is something that's come through, I suppose, from our primary and secondary school educational structure that's also going to, be something that's going to continue as they enter into college. I suppose I have a few different questions. There's a lot of interesting topics that have been brought up here. I suppose, Professor Hokortik, Gurmil Mohagat, and great to see you here today. And I know we've got the UniCov, isn't it? The antigen testing is kicking off, and it's been going since, I think, the 14th of June. And I suppose my question for you is, I know it's Professor Breatha Smith, and I know that that's a link between the college and between, I know, public health there. But I was going to see if you might be able to give us a little taster of how it's going, maybe, if you were able to give a little bit of an update. And just, I know it's a comparative study. I know it's probably just in the initial stages, but just how and the different types of groups that are working together and researchers that are involved. I really want to thank, I suppose, on behalf of this committee, as the chair has done, I suppose, the thousands of staff and students that are going to be involved in this testing across 4 of the universities. They're doing this to ensure that we have and are building an evidence base, and that this will stand alongside PCR testing. But we can only make decisions based on evidence, and it's been crucial to see how research has driven, our getting a vaccine. That's all based on research. So our researchers are crucial, absolutely crucial to dealing with this pandemic. I suppose if I might just note as well, thank you to Mr. Carney as well on the ETBs. I'm a pure advocate. I know that, as you've mentioned here, and the stats are amazing, 200 centres, that's in every town and village across Ireland. No matter where you are based, in whatever county, you know that there's a college of further education that can, that will engage with you, and that, you can continue to do FET or further education and training courses. And I suppose it was great to see that the 32,000 staff and over 220,000 FET learners are going to be back on track, and have been over the last number of months. I suppose, Mr. Carney, if I might just ask you about the apprenticeships in particular. We're really promoting that programme in terms of earning and learning, and just sort of showing that for students, because there will be a high numbers of students, school leavers and career changers, at any point in their lives, that may be looking to engage, particularly now when we're seeing a changing of roles. So maybe if you wanted to give a little bit of an update. I think there's 60 courses at the moment. I think they're anticipating another 18, but just how you feel it's been going for the apprenticeship programme, perhaps in the ETBs. I suppose the last thing I was going to ask then maybe as well is, Dr. Ryan, we were speaking earlier this week, only Tuesday. We're getting to meet twice this week, and absolutely delighted, I know, to see the opening date for the AIT and for a brand new TUS, I suppose, technological university for Shannon Midlands Midwest. Absolutely wonderful news that it's going to be opening up in October. And I know that I've seen as well, you've mentioned about how our facilities and infrastructure, have provided us with the vaccination centres. Myself, I was in Athlone. I went to AIT, and I was in the wonderful international arena to get my vaccine, and it was so well coordinated. And if I might just mention very briefly that it is the universities and the staff and the colleges working with, I suppose, the HSC, public health staff, community health care, the army, civil defence, stewards. It was incredible to see all of these groups working together. Just, Dr. Ryan, you mentioned just about the welcome supports for students. I just wanted you to maybe expand a little bit on that. And I know we've spoken as well briefly about funding international students in Erasmus. As a previous Erasmus student myself, I would be very supportive of that programme. But I suppose just if you want to give a brief comment, I understand that budgets are tight. They are tight, and this year will be difficult. But we are there to support you in whatever way we can, and particularly in the international student sector. And I know that will be dependent on the COVID passport as well. Thank you very much. And Gur Mohagat's chair as well.
Whoever's first then, Professor, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you, Aisling Dolan. Yes, just to go back to the question of the antigen testing, and as you say, it's been led out by Breatha Smith, who in her role in HSE West was particularly helpful to us in the context of our own work in this regard. So we're very grateful to her. And now she's leading out with others across four institutions, including ours, on the testing element. And I understand there's further announcements to be made, which I don't want to preempt, but this week in that regard. A governance structure has been put in place, and Breda is chairing that. Technology, including app and website technology, has been developed. Clinical end-to-end pathways have been developed in each of the institutions. That's in Trinity, UCC, UCD, and ourselves at NUI Galway. And the recruitment to testing is commencing, and as I say, this week our anticipation is that there'll be announcements in that regard, how that might progress. So there are 4 institutions involved, different pathways in each, so it's testing across different platforms and technologies, if you like, across those 4 institutions. And it was mentioned earlier, the antigen testing is a contested space, and at all times we'll be both informed by this research, and as universities, that's our role, if you like, to be evidence-based, so informed by this research, and secondly by public health advice about how effective it is and how we should implement it in the context of a return to campus in the autumn. So a further announcement this week, but 4 institutions involved, Breda Smith and Charlie Spillane from Galway, and then Trinity, UCD in Cork, and looking forward to further working with them in that context.
That's great to hear, Professor Spillane. I'd remember him all right. It's so great to see his involvement. Thank you. Maybe if Dr. Carney would like to continue.
Certainly, as Senator Dolan, the greatest challenge with the pandemic, and there were many in terms of delivery of vet services, were of course in terms of delivery of apprenticeship, because of their focus on the practical dimension. But the benefit of the stakeholder group really came through in terms of our close working relationships with Solace, with the union representatives, and with department officials, and that paved the pathway in terms of a facilitated return for apprenticeship delivery as quickly as possible, with 251 apprentices returning in the 1st of March. The next phase, with 320 apprentices, being escalated then up to 589 in the 2nd week of April. Currently, at the moment, there's another plan of increased activity, incorporating the return of 720 apprentices. Solace have been very forward-thinking in relation to this, in terms of countering a significant backlog of apprenticeship placements, and have put in place with the 3 highest categories of apprenticeship delivery in relation to electrical, plumbing, and carpentry and joinery, and have put in place technical groups that will look at an emergency approach. The normal extended phase 2 deliveries for 22 weeks. It's looking for a condensed blended approach that will cut back the number of weeks required out of work in terms of delivery of the phase 2 model. And as we speak, technical groups are established with 6 to 7 members right throughout the FET sector itself, including FET directors, training centre managers, and authorised officers. And that's concluding a very ambitious plan be put in place, hopefully for September, with a view to countering over 4,500 significant components of that backlog, with a view to targeted apprenticeship delivery. Senator Dolan.
Thank you very much. Great to see that you can reach NFQ levels 7 or 8 with all of those courses. Garmagat, and Dr. Ryan, if we have time, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yep,
Chair.
briefly,
If we may,
Ryan,
I'll be very brief and quick fire answers to Senator Dolan. Thank you for the questions. Just to note for the committee that there is a parallel HSE antigen testing pilot taking place in the technological sector. So, and I fully agree with you, evidence base is critical. On apprenticeships, I noticed the point to John. There is a crisis in apprenticeship at the moment, and there is a national mobilisation around this. We're convening a meeting which happens to take place tomorrow. We'll be working right across higher education, because apprenticeships go right up the framework, right up to level 10, and we'll be working equally with John on a cross-sectoral piece as well. On vaccination, my wife and I had the same experience you had, Senator Dolan. We went to AIT, and just I know it as a sports arena and as a location for graduations, but to see it and to see the logistics and the wonderful organisation, it's a credit to everyone involved. The student voice, the supports for student voice, all of our professionals have really been engaged with them. Student voice has been very strong strong on this national steering group that I referenced in the presentation. But there's been so much that we've had to look at, like Wi-Fi, access to devices, counselling, how all of that's done. So we're working in a very holistic way, because when students come back, it's not just about the learning element, about the broader experience. So we're working, for instance, with Sports Ireland to see the activities that students can get involved in. Finally, on your international question, Senator Dolan, we're looking at maybe flexibility around the use of monies, Erasmus monies, cross-border monies, etc., because there's a number of dynamics going on to try and support international student mobility, meet and greet, etc., which was very carefully looked after last year. I won't lay you chair on this, but there's a lot going on in that space. Thank you.
Very much.
Okay.